The rain had been falling all evening, thin streaks against the cabin's single window, when Daniel heard it, a knock. It wasn't the bold thump of a neighbor or the sharp rap of a deliveryman. No, this was softer. 3 uneven taps, hesitant, almost apologetic. The sort of knock that asked permission rather than demanded entry. Daniel frowned, setting his book aside. Out here, at the edge of town, people didn't just show up. His cabin sat beyond a mile of dirt road, hugged by trees that bent close as if guarding secrets. Visitors were rare, especially at night. When he opened the door, the sight made him pause. A little girl stood on the porch, soaked from the rain, hair plastered against her face. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Her dress was thin, her shoes muddy, and in her small hand she clutched a worn stuffed rabbit, ears drooping as though it had seen too many storms. Her eyes met his, wide, uncertain. "I'm lost," she whispered. Daniel's first instinct was disbelief. What was a child doing alone in these woods after dark? He leaned past her, scanning the shadows for headlights, lanterns, or frantic parents. Nothing, just trees swaying in the wet wind. "Where's your family?" he asked. She shook her head, tears glimmering. "I don't know." The cabin's threshold suddenly felt like a line between two worlds. One where he could close the door and convince himself this wasn't his problem, and another where he stepped into responsibility he hadn't asked for. A memory tugged at him then. His younger sister. Years ago, the way she had looked up at him for help before that car accident stole her away. He swallowed hard. "Come inside," he said, stepping aside. The girl hesitated, then shuffled in, her shoes leaving small wet prints on the wooden floor. Daniel fetched a blanket and wrapped it around her thin shoulders. He warmed milk on the stove. He didn't know if children still like that, but it felt right. She held the mug with both hands, sipping carefully, while the rabbit sat in her lap like a silent guardian. "What's your name?" Daniel asked, crouching so his voice matched her height. "Lily," she said. The name landed softly in the cabin's stillness. Daniel nodded. "All right, Lily. We'll figure this out." He called the sheriff's office, explaining what had happened. The deputy's voice on the other end was steady but tired. No missing children had been reported. "Keep her there tonight," the deputy advised. "We'll check the records, see what comes up." Daniel hung up, uneasy. He gave Lily the couch and tucked the blanket around her. She curled up, clutching her rabbit so tightly her knuckles turned white. When she finally drifted off, Daniel lingered, staring at her small frame. Something inside him stirred, a mix of protectiveness and dread. Morning brought little clarity. Daniel drove Lily into town, her small hand gripping his as they crossed the street. At the sheriff's office, the news was the same. No child reported missing, no frantic parents searching. The sheriff's expression carried both gratitude and suspicion. "Keep her close," he said. "We'll keep digging." Daniel bought her clothes from the general store. Simple things, jeans and a sweater. She changed reluctantly, keeping the old dress folded on the seat beside her, as though it meant more than just fabric. Back at the cabin, the days passed with quiet strangeness. Lily spoke little, watching him with eyes too large, too knowing. She helped stack firewood, fed scraps to the stray cat that sometimes prowled near the porch, and always kept that stuffed rabbit nearby. But the nights unsettled him. The second night, he woke to the sound of the front door creaking open. Heart racing, he grabbed the lantern and rushed to the entry. The lock was still in place, the door shut tight, yet he was sure he had heard it. The fire burned steady, but the air held pockets of cold, as if the warmth avoided certain corners. One time, he thought he heard Lily whispering. When he peeked into the living room, she was sitting upright on the couch, eyes wide, staring into the dark. "Who are you talking to?" he asked, trying to steady his voice. She clutched the rabbit closer, her gaze snapping to him. "Nobody," she said quickly. Daniel let it go, though unease prickled at him. By the third day, the townsfolk had noticed. A child no one recognized, taken in by a solitary man who rarely visited town. He could feel the weight of their eyes, suspicion whispered behind polite nods. He tried to ignore it, focusing instead on Lily's quiet trust. The way she slipped her hand into his when they walked. The way her face softened, just slightly, when he said she was safe. Still, doubt gnawed at him. Who was this girl? Why had no one reported her missing? And what was it that stirred in the woods at night, just beyond the firelight's reach? Daniel told himself it was just fear. Hers, his, maybe both tangled together. But as the sun set on that third day, a heaviness settled in his chest. Something was coming, and when it did, he would realize Lily wasn't the only one being tested. The third night fell heavier than the ones before, as if the forest itself leaned closer to listen. Daniel tried to make the cabin feel normal. He made stew, let Lily sit by the fire, even put on an old record that hissed more than it sang. For a while, it almost worked, a man and a child, weathering a storm together. Almost. The first knock came just after midnight. 3 deliberate raps. The same rhythm as before. Daniel froze, ladle still in his hand. The memory of that first night washed back, the hesitant tapping on his door, the small figure waiting in the rain. But Lily was already here. His pulse quickened. He set the ladle down and went to the door, each step louder than it should have been. He opened it slowly, lantern in hand. No one stood on the porch. Rain dripped from the eaves, the forest stretching endless and dark. The path was empty, yet the sound had been real. The vibration still echoed in his chest. Daniel shut the door hard, bolting it. When he turned back, Lily was watching him. Not afraid, not even surprised. "They're here," she said softly. Daniel's skin prickled. "Who's here?" She tilted her head slightly, as though listening to something beyond his hearing. "The ones who wanted to see what you do." He stared at her, struggling to catch up. "What I do? About what?" "About me," she said simply. The words landed like stones in water, sending ripples through his mind. His throat tightened. "Lily, what are you talking about?" But she only walked to the window, the stuffed rabbit dangling from her arm. She pressed her small hand against the glass. Daniel joined her reluctantly, lantern casting weak light across the yard. At first, he saw only trees and fog, but then movement. Figures, tall still, half hidden among the trunks. Not quite men, not quite shadows. Their shapes didn't bend right, as if they'd been carved from the dark itself. Dozens of them, unmoving, watching. Daniel's breath hitched. His instinct screamed at him to grab the girl, to hide her, to run, though there was nowhere to run. "What are they?" His voice cracked. Lily turned back, and for the first time since arriving, she smiled. It wasn't the smile of a child. It was older, knowing, almost sorrowful. "They're the Watchers," she said. "They test people. They wanted to see if you would help me." The fire behind them popped, making Daniel flinch. He tried to laugh, but it came out jagged. This is insane." She only shrugged, as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. "Some people turn me away. Some call the police and never let me back in. Some pretend not to hear the knock at all." Her eyes locked on his. "You let me in. You gave me food. You stayed." Daniel's heart pounded so hard it hurt. He searched her face for the child he thought he'd taken in. The frightened girl with muddy shoes and tearful eyes. But what looked back at him wasn't just a child. It was something far greater, wrapped in smallness. "You're saying," he struggled for the words, "you're saying none of this was real? That you're not?" "I'm Lily," she said simply. "But I'm also more than Lily. And you've been more than Daniel these past 3 days." You were a choice. His knees felt weak. He stumbled back into the chair, pressing a hand over his mouth. He thought of the sleepless nights, the whispers, the cold pockets of air, the unblinking eyes he thought he imagined. Not imagination, not coincidence. He had been under watch. Judge. The figures outside shifted once, almost like a bow. Then, one by one, they dissolved into the fog, fading until only trees remained. When Daniel turned back, the couch was empty. The blanket lay folded neatly, as if it had never been disturbed. The stuffed rabbit sat alone, its glassy button eyes staring up at him. "Lily," he called, though he already knew. His voice cracked in the silence. No answer came. The cabin felt suddenly cavernous, too large for one man. He picked up the rabbit and sank into the chair, pressing the worn fabric against his chest. A bitter laugh escaped him. He had wanted to protect her, wanted to prove himself capable of being someone's anchor. Maybe that had been the point. In the weeks that followed, Daniel told no one the truth. To the sheriff, to the curious townsfolk, he claimed Lily's family had been found, that she was safe. Easier than explaining the unexplainable. But sometimes, in the deepest hours of night, he swore he felt eyes on him again. A presence just beyond the tree line. Watching, measuring, and though he never saw Lily again, the rabbit stayed on his shelf. A reminder that the smallest knock on the door could be the loudest test of all.